the way that we discover things online isn't really discovery anymore. Greg, can you do a quick little intro on yourself?
Yes, for sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Beaucoup Data. We're essentially like data, AI, machine learning lab. I'm the technical expert, like scientific engineering guy at Beaucoup Data. And that gives me a lot of time to like explore new solutions. And I have a lot of side quests, side projects. Today I'm here to talk about one of them.
Today's segment is a really special one. It's a summon the council session where effectively founders come to us with real challenges. And instead of figuring everything out behind closed doors, we invite really smart people into the conversation to open it up honestly and collaboratively. What is this side quest called, Greg?
I don't count them, but SideQuest 100 sounded good. So I just roll with that.
Yeah, SQ100. It feels super fun.
If we can find a cool, something interesting name today, that'd be great. If not, let's roll with the SideQuest 100. Essentially, what it is as you mentioned, I'm really looking and interested as to how we discover fashion. I feel like I've been working for a lifetime building those algorithms, designing and trying to find what people would like. But I feel like we have to look at the problem for like a non-transactional way if we really want to make a change and make something interesting. So what I'm looking into is trying to build this solution and imagining what this experience could be. And well, this is why we're here today, trying to talk to experts and see where we can go with this.
They're actually backstage waiting for us to invite them onto the call. But before we do, Greg, it would be super cool if you can give us a quick overview of what SQ100 actually looks and feels like. What does it actually do? Can we
Right.
please see it?
Yes, for sure. And I must say, this is a disclaimer. What I'm going to show you is embryo version of what SQ100 could be. And it's more to illustrate how I see the problem and how I visualize it.
That's a really good moment to just quickly level set. I set up the problem as discovery in general is broken. And this is effectively what you're trying to solve. The lords of the algorithm are pushing things to us based on things that we've done in the past, which means over time, your world gets smaller, not bigger. Would you say that's fair?
I do think so. I feel like that there's ways we can be more sustainable, more ethical in the way we consume. And that's what I'm looking into.
Your current prototype is super embryonic. You're following your intuition of, listen, I think something isn't working right in the world. I want to change that. So, can we design a system to actually expand taste, to expand discovery, even at a local level that would normally not be in our radar?
Yes, that's it. And let me jump right in. This is like a draft. Like, really, I'm trying to put in the computer what I have in mind when I think about fashion and how things are related. But what you can see here is what we call a graph. Essentially, we have a bunch of points that we call nodes and lines between them that are relationships, how things are linked. And you can see there's a legend here, very simple. So all the images are products, all the blue dots are brands, red dots are categories or departments, for instance. In green, you have material. And from here, what I did is I went and downloaded essentially the old catalog for three brands. The first one is Dime MTL, a Montreal-based brand that I like. We have Reigning Champ. And the other one that we have is Allo Tomorrow. What's super interesting for me is you can navigate through the information, right? Products are organized if they look like each other, if they have attachment and relationship in this graph. And what is super interesting is to start thinking, what is this here? Why is this not linked with anything? So we can see here, Reigning Champ. All of the blue points here are their products. And if I go, for instance, with Dime, we can see that it's positioned here. One of the questions that I had is, what type of information would be relevant to put in this graph or this like data organization so that we can extract what is important for us when we start looking into products? Essentially, what we can do is take this information here, which is highly correlated, right? Like, this is much richer than a database where I have to look into like tables and then like a CSV file or something like this. We can produce much more relationships between those things. We could put that into a recommendation engine where we can create this experience and start asking questions instead of saying like, I'm looking for blue shoes. Now you can start saying, hey, I'm looking for shoes that come from designer that come from this country. I want them to be in this material and find me what looks the most like these shoes, for instance.
Greg, if we can zoom out just really quickly, I want to explain to people what it is that we're seeing here. Greg is able to extrapolate all of the products from a particular website, and it clusters together similar items in a group. And then things that look and feel different, it puts it a little bit more on the fringe. Did I explain that correctly, Greg?
Yeah, that's exactly it. For reference, I added a brand. As you were speaking, I added a brand to the graph here. And we can see here how those products are related. Like I'm interested in this one here, which is wool.
How the dots are connected, it's by material, it's by look as well.
This is what is being done here, but we can do anything, right? And we can relate them by the designer who did them, the company who was manufacturing them, the country of origin, the materials, like what would be the sourcing of that cotton. In my world of like engineering and tech, this is really much a draft of what we could do.
Just to kind of walk everyone through the user journey, you go onto a website. If you've already purchased things in the past, they will recommend things that you've already purchased because they know it's a low-hanging fruit. You're seeing what is already a curated view for you. Here's everything. And here's everything that feels similar. And here are things that are totally outside of the similarity of things. It's literally a discovery tool. There's no end game profit thing here in the background. It's really, how can I visualize all of the things and things that are interesting on the fringe that I would normally not find. So how about we start inviting people into the conversation?
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm going to cue my sound effect because I really feel like these are super fun. There we go. Sogand, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
So hi, everyone that's watching. I'm Sogand. I am a marketing director in fashion. I have my own business with my sister called Call SB Consulting, where we offer marketing services to different brands, especially in fashion, but across different categories. And I was previously the marketing director at Versace. So love marketing and fashion. And yeah, excited to be here.
You're literally seeing this for the first time, yeah?
Well, yes, I am.
Is there something here that the industry needs, the world needs? Is there a reason we need better ways of discovering local fashion?
What would you do if I said no to all of those questions?
Backstage you go.
I'm just kidding. I always have to throw in an inappropriate joke. It's really interesting and funny enough. I think I was like on Farfetch maybe like a few weeks ago. And Farfetch obviously is so algorithm based because it's a marketplace and there's just like millions of products on it. I honestly get so overwhelmed. And sometimes when I feel like these sites, when they're giving curated edits for me, like they just don't hit it on the mark. Because also like I'm kind of the person, I have a lot of different styles as well, just based on like my emotion for the day. All places that I shop on in general, when you have multiple different styles or you buy different
Right.
types of items from them, it's like almost as if the algorithm glitches and it doesn't know like what to show you anymore. And I know for a fact that a lot of these sites, they group their customers into like segments of like modern, classicist, or loud, luxury, like different types. And like what happens if you don't fit in a box? So I do think this is very interesting just in that concept, because I literally just a few weeks ago was like, ugh, these curates like aren't working for me. So that's how I feel about it.
I think that's super interesting. And to your point, they have personas essentially, and that's a big part of how they will market fashion. But one of the questions that I had was in this having multiple, not personalities, but styles. And I
I do
totally
have
relate.
multiple personalities, yes.
Let's not go there today. I was curious to understand, like, what's the process for you to essentially like discovering new brands, designers, or
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that I follow a lot of different types of people and brands. One time I read something that's like only follow the things that you really want to see, like on Instagram or in news or whatever it may be, or in what you consume. And what I consume is like a variety of different things. So even when I'm listening to music, for example, take that as an example.
right? Yeah.
I'm always consuming like different types of music, which influences my fashion sense a lot. A lot of like film and TV. I'm not just someone who just consumes the fashion world and then therefore
Right.
only consume fashion related content. So for me, I'm always consuming different things, which then therefore always inspire me in the way I want to dress or shop.
Super interesting.
Seeing the tool that Greg is cooking up, where did your brain go?
I thought, thank God.
Okay. So there's something there.
Yeah.
There's something there.
I was like, oh, he's
Okay.
got something. I think if there's someone that can come in and firstly personalize it even more, but also allow for more discovery. So I'm not seeing the same sweater 17 times because I bought another, like a similar sweater. Every day I'm like walking on the street and I see new stores and new brands that I'm discovering, or even again, like in the things that I'm consuming. And I'm like, how have I not known about this before? There's also a beauty here in the like local aspect of it and the emerging aspect of it too.
Amazing. I'm going to put you backstage and I'm going to bring on
Sure.
another guest.
Yeah.
And then we're going to bring everybody back full on conversation. Sounds good? I like my little applause thing. This is fun. Okay, here we go. We got Natalie. Hello.
Hello.
Natalie. Hello, Nat. Welcome to Zero NDA. Let us know who you are and a little bit about yourself.
My name is Natalie. I am pretty much a merchant. I have buying and planning background over 20 years. I mostly spent it in fashion. Half of that was pretty much at SSENSE and previously at Aldo. Currently, I'm in the home and design space at Goodee. My focus is pretty much buying, and a big chunk is essentially trying to discover new brands.
From that perspective, what is your initial reaction? How does it feel?
About time. As a buyer, curation is like the top thing that we're looking for. I think everyone who shops online has maybe a specific website that they prefer over others. And it could essentially be because of the aesthetic, but also because of how that specific website curates. Some people might prefer to shop at Farfetch, others prefer shopping at SSENSE, but it's essentially the curation and targeting what the customer is looking for that's important. I think Greg's project is basically what it's doing.
Okay, very cool. Greg, do you have some questions?
I'm curious to understand from a merchandiser perspective or like a buyer, how do you discover brands? And assuming that you need to hit targets, right? Like you cannot say, oh, okay, well, this year I didn't find no new brands. How do you make that almost like a process?
Let's go from a monetary perspective is either we explore category or department that we wish to go into. Or expand into. It could be price point, it could be that. And then from a second angle, it's the aesthetic point of view. If grunge
Right,
is
okay.
in, if romanticism is in, if bohemian chic is in, and then we go which designers, which showrooms offer that kind of curation. I mean, the industry, we typically will go on Instagram's always a good source. Vendors' contacts are always a good source. Creative directors who go from one brand to the next. And if you've liked their work historically, you've liked it. As a consumer, I tend to look at things either via Instagram or creating mood boards or even going on websites like SSENSE and then Harding and creating my own sort of aesthetic vibe, kind of like a Pinterest. I think from what you touched on, for sure that the algorithm is broken. I feel like I'm going down a path that it's forcing me to, but it's not exactly getting my aesthetic.
Right, exactly.
So the element of curation would be a sense of personalization for me is something that's not typically being done. Like Sogand mentioned, I click on one purple sweater and then the algorithm tells me, okay, here's another million purple sweaters. I'm like, dude, I got my purple sweater. I want something else. So if the algorithm suggested something on that likes purple, she probably likes green. Like, let me give her something else from the same designer, or a similar price point or similar texture. That would be super interesting. I don't know what you're doing from a UX point of view. I use shopping online as like a pastime. Like people are on Instagram. I will scroll and I will doom scroll. I think it would be really interesting even in your app to do something along the lines of like a Tinder swipe left, swipe right if I'm into it or not. And then the algorithm bases it on my preferences and then suggests to me like, hey, this might be interesting for you.
Mhm. This is great. Nat, I'm going to put you backstage again and I'll bring Greg out. Hello, Greg. Welcome to Zero NDA.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So I'm a personal shopper. I've been a personal shopper for about 8 years. I'm also a content creator, mostly in the menswear space on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And happy to be here.
Seeing something like this for the first time, how does it feel?
It's very interesting. You know, it's actually something that I discuss with one of my friend quite often on how we're all sort of in a way being bombarded with the same um, taste levels, the same sort of like looks and brands, and it becomes very hard for you to shy away from it. One of the things that I was thinking about was like pre sort of like, let's say, algorithm, right? Like 2015, 16, like when things were kind of still small. I think there was this thing where discovery was fairly simple, right? And there were things that were quite different. So it made you a bit more curious, right? And you could do your research and find things that are like quite different from one another, right? And now I just kind of feel like things are very much so the same in most cases, which kind of sometimes pushes you to look at like the same thing all the time instead of like finding new ways to consume and to look at fashion.
Often when we talk about experiences, we talk about the sea of sameness. Everything you see is the same. You just don't feel like there's anything else. And to your point, it becomes very like shying away from this is it's getting more and more complicated, 100%.
100%. Like I even think about when I work with my clients, when I'm trying to sort of like introduce them to maybe a new brand or a new website to shop onto and things like that. I have to do a lot more digging than previously. I could find things that don't look the same because everybody was kind of still testing out different websites, different looks, a bit more fashion forward. And now it's almost like the authenticity is gone to where if one thing works, everybody just does it. So yeah, so I think all of this would be very interesting, not just for me, but even like for the clients that I work with.
How would you almost like sell a brand to a client that you have? For instance, like you discover a new brand, a designer does something super cool, very interesting. How would you introduce that to a customer?
That's a great question because I actually find myself doing that quite often, especially with newer brands. So for me, a lot of the times it has to do with the person behind the brand. How authentic are they trying to be, right? Like, what are they introducing into the fashion world that's kind of new that nobody has really seen? Or are they doing enough sort of like research to go back into times and introducing that into their new brand? When I'm excited about, let's say, a brand or something like that to a client, I usually have my way of like convincing them into, hey, listen, this is made here. This is what the person behind the brand, this is what they're trying to communicate, right? And usually it tends to work pretty well for me. So yeah, so I just find authenticities kind of become more important than ever when we look at how we're just consuming everything in general, whether it's like content, being online, websites. So yeah, the more authentic it is, the better it is for me.
Okay, it's super interesting.
I think it's going to be fun to just bring everybody onto the scene and just start poking away at some of the threads that you're pursuing, Greg. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do this.
Let's bring everybody back with a big round of applause. Does anyone have any burning questions for Greg and what he's cooking up?
I do. Like, what's the timeline on this bad boy?
That's a great question. As a side quest, I tend to leave the timeline a bit more open. The first thing I would like to do is just have a platform a little bit like you saw where anybody can just go and explore. That would be my first objective. And I think I can do that in like a couple of months. I just want to build the right thing. Then after that, what I would have in mind is more of a platform where you can log in, sign in, say, hey, I have those clothes. Here's how they relate to other things, for instance, and start exploring in this fashion.
What made you go down this rabbit hole? Were they things that you were personally noticing that you wanted to change?
I was just shopping for shoes. I'm not sure what's the word in English, but mocassin. And I was like, oh man, they're so sick. And like, I just thought that they were sick, but they were like a couple bands. So I was like, hey, you know what? Let me go and look online if there's a similar picture or just out of curiosity. And I found a brand. It's called Bastien Industries. It's a local brand here in Quebec, and they made like First Nation people making mocassin, like the real deal. And thinking, okay, so I have someone in my backyard doing the actual thing. And then I started really like rethinking and unpacking the way I was buying before and thinking, hey, maybe I can tell the same story for everything.
So cool.
Is the app like specifically tailored for discovery in general or discovery of local brands?
The idea of making it local really comes from the story I told you where it was important for me. So this is why I wanted to make something local. But at the end of the day, I mean, this could be a global thing, right? It's not a limitation. I'm passionate by fashion. So this is where I went into. But we could do this with interior decor, for instance. Like the system is agnostic of what we put in it.
Is this going to be like a swipe left, swipe right, or is this going to be zooming in and then clicking on images?
I think I really like this like perspective of having all the products in hindsight, right? That I can just zoom out and say like, okay, so this is all the products. And when you go back, even thinking about a platform, Sogand talked about Farfetch, we talked about SSENSE, there's no website or there's no experience where you can see all the products one at a time. And already I'm thinking, hey, maybe that's an avenue, a path that we could follow. One thing that could be interesting is just being able to have like an agent or like a chatbot or something like this, where you can go and do researches across this graph, especially if it's going to become bigger and bigger, so that you can go and pinpoint and say, hey, show me all the wedding dress, for instance. And then all of them start to glow in this graph. Now it becomes interesting in thinking like, oh, okay, so there are two sets of wedding dresses, for instance. And then those brands are making them. And then you can start thinking and exploring those concepts.
And is the idea essentially you have like parameters in there? Like, okay, I want a dress made in an Italian brand at less than $5,000, but more than 3,000. So you'd have filters and then the images disappear or as you...
Right, exactly. And I mean, we could bring them up, display them the way we want. And then we can say, I don't care about material, right? So we like, this is something we can remove. The other way around, I might absolutely care about, hey, I want a product that is made in Italy. But then if we add that information, we can also say, but by a German designer, for instance.
Okay.
And then this is where you can start thinking of like interesting things or the other way around. And I think this echoes to what Greg was saying. Hey, I want this creator, but I don't really care what brand he was at or when they do their work, essentially. So now you can look into, okay, so this designer, this is what they're doing. And I can see they're always using these materials or these color palettes, for instance. Now you can start explore it in a way that you would not be able to do with Excel, for instance, or tabular data.
And then I have one more question, because that question is essentially based like on what I know I'm looking for. If I'm looking for a wedding dress less than $5,000, what if I don't know what I'm looking for? And instead I have a wardrobe and I just want to shop. Do I like dump my wardrobe in here and then the algorithm tells me like, okay, you're in this section, like you're in this circle? Or...
And this is where it becomes interesting. Right now, I don't have the concept of people in my graph, essentially. The next step would be to say, hey, I'm Greg. I log in and subscribe to SQ100. I send you pictures of my clothes. Or I give you like export whatever my purchases from like Farfetch or SSENSE or whatever. I upload it here. And now I can see like, hey, here's where I am in this space. Products that are extremely similar to what I have, I'm not interested into. But then there's a lot of ways we can start exploring and say, hey, I want to build an outfit. I need a white t-shirt. I need this, I need that. And then you can start playing with the different options that you have within those clusters.
Your comment made me realize something really interesting. With the swipe left, swipe right, this is a conditioning. We've been conditioned to tell the algorithm, this is what we like, this is what we do not like. This experiment is effectively rethinking this from the ground up. And so a new user interface will have to eventually be designed. Right now, the exploration is like, what does this world look like zoomed out, before we can really start dialing in, before we can even start inputting our preferences, like what even are our choices, And this is the fun thought experiment that we're in. When I was speaking with Greg yesterday, he was like, do you like something because it's been recommended to you so many times? Or do you like something because you actually like something? Like, how do you know what you actually like, right? Like, it's this chicken or egg scenario. Greg, do you have something to add to that? Because I felt like that was such an interesting reflection.
This is, to me, exactly what Greg was saying earlier, right? This sameness where you feel like there's a mold and we don't really see anything else outside. So we fit in it and we're like, yeah, man, I fit in the mold and like I do it well. So this is my style. When you turn, I want to say like 12 or like 12 to 16, there's stuff that you really like. The best example is like chocolate cake. At this age, you're like, oh yes, my nephew, my kid, they really like chocolate cake. Often it's just that when they were 2, they ate chocolate cake. Someone asked them if they liked it. They said yes. And then that's been it forever since. I feel like we're in this part where I like jeans. I wore jeans once. Now I'm wearing jeans almost forever. And this is a part where, yeah, just because there's not many options that come to me naturally, even if I look for them, it's complicated. can we solve this problem?
I'm very excited to trial it. So maybe on the next one we can trial it. What is my user experience going to be?
I don't want to capitalize on like selling clothes and presenting the good clothes. I feel like this is like the ultimate bias at the end of the day. If I make money out of what you buy, I will show you what sells, essentially, not what you want to discover. The way I see this is probably there would be a way to just send you to the website of the company so that you can shop on your own and make this distinction, essentially. Then in terms of experience, it's like a search engine plus plus, where you can go and search across multiple brands, multiple everything, to be able to say like, hey, I like this and I don't. I feel like having this social aspect would be interesting for discovery. And leaning into my other point, and this is like the nerd version of the interface. What if we took it and said, here's what people like. We turn it into like a magazine spread, for instance, and we can start recommending you stuff. This could become a newsletter, for instance, where you get the outfits. There's virtual try-ons. There's a bunch of things that we can do after to make it exciting. But just already having like recommendation and interacting and saying like, oh yes, I like this outfit. No, I don't like this outfit. And not in the idea of I want to buy stuff. It's more to say I want to document my taste almost.
No, that's really, really cool.
I don't know if you guys know the magazine Popeye. It's like a Japanese magazine that the styling and like creative direction is on like impeccable in this magazine. It's very minimalist and they focus on the content much more than how it's presented. And having this like I have this platform that's very complex with AI and all this stuff. But what I get is just a spread from a magazine that says, hey, those are very cool products. Look at them and I hope you think they're cool.
The part that you said about like sort of like a magazine that you would flip through and you know that this one is going to have sort of content that's quite different from everything else you're seeing. And I think like as a fashion consumer, like that would be amazing because it's kind of like this little space that I have where it's like, oh, when I want to discover something new, this is where I go. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily monetary driven or virally driven. It's more so just like, oh, this is what we find tasteful right now. And then there's a lot of like authenticity and individualism in that, you know, which I do think that sometimes we are missing within the fashion realm of things.
Before we get into the next steps, are there any high level thoughts that you want to share?
Taking one from each of you guys, Nats, I like the idea of like Tinder, or at least like being able to like and dislike things. Like even anonymously would be super interesting. I'm really curious to see how we can get into what Sogand said, like having multiple styles and how do we make this work. And Greg is a bit, I want to say, was humble, right? Like to me, if you go and see his content, is like the style overlord. This perspective of like this authenticity part, I feel like it's important for me. I don't know if it's important for everybody. And having this validation really, it speaks to everybody somehow.
Greg, what are some of the next steps for you in this project?
I would say two parts. The first one would be validating this point that we discussed with Sogand. Like, what if we have different style or we have like things that are widely different? That I'm curious to explore. The other one would be to sketch a UI, right? Like, would want people to be able to validate and say, yes, that works, or no, that doesn't. That would get us far very quickly.
This whole session was about, is the system broken? Yes. Does it need fixing? Yes. Is Greg headed down the right path? It sounds like yes.
We hope.
So perhaps like SQ100 will continue to see the light of day, yeah?
Absolutely. And I'm curious, actually, now that you mention it, if you guys have names for this, like an idea or something, yeah, that'd be cool. That's a tough one, right?
This requires like a proper brainstorm, Greg.
Yeah, okay, that's okay.
Sounds like part of the big next step is, what is this thing going to start to look like from a user experience perspective? And perhaps, Greg, this is where we start to hone in on the co-creation session, right? Of like, can we open up this process now that we know that you're pulling the right threads?
Exactly. Yeah.
What does it start to look like from the user experience perspective and this UI?
Like a good challenge.
It's going to be a good challenge for sure. With that, thank you all so much for joining. We will see you on the next episode of Zero NDA.